Check out carmarshal.com. The link is in the description. They help support us.
On my right is Damon Grimes' mom, Monique, and on my left is John Hughes, Damon's dad. They're with me. They're not going to be answering any questions today. Come over here a little bit. But I wanted to inform both you and Michigan State Police and the Michigan or Detroit Police who were out on the scene today interviewing witnesses with my associates who were out on the scene. Detroit police detectives were out canvassing the neighborhood and taking witnesses into the Detroit Police Department to interview eyewitnesses to the event. We've filed a 2-count complaint in federal court today. The case has been assigned to Judge Gershwin Drain in the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Michigan, Southern Division. We allege 2 causes of action. We allege a violation of the Federal Civil Rights Act, Section 1983. We also allege gross negligence under Michigan law. We believe we know the name of the officer involved in the case. However, we have not confirmed his identity, and therefore we are not releasing that name at this time. And so the complaint, as you'll notice, is filed under the name of John Doe. Monique is the personal representative, having been appointed this morning by the Wayne County Probate Court. And we're filing it against a unknown or unnamed Michigan State Police officer by the name of, we're using the name Doe. Ultimately, we will be amending the complaint to add the gentleman's real name. My understanding is he may have a series of incidents that have followed him around, so that the situation is not an isolated incident. Our understanding is that in essence, this Michigan State police officer conducted what I could only describe as a drive-by shooting of a child on an ATV. Under no circumstances should any police officer ever, at any time, any place, anywhere, shoot like a cowboy out of his vehicle, which is my understanding of what he did, out the window and shoot a young man who's driving a vehicle, an ATV in this case, which either killed Damon immediately by virtue of the taser. I've had those cases that cause cardiac arrest, or cause seizures so that Damon could not possibly control the vehicle, and Damon ran into the back of another vehicle. Now, we have not received the results of the autopsy. We are today conducting a second autopsy with Dr. Werner Spitz, former Wayne County and Macomb County medical examiner. So we cannot tell you at this time the cause of death, whether it be electrocution, electrical shock, blunt force trauma, or a combination of both caused by the electrical shock. But the idea of shooting someone on a vehicle through the window with a electrical taser is so nonsensical and so absolutely mind-boggling stupid as to leave me in amazement that this has occurred. I know Chief Craig, I respect him, and I believe he is conducting a thorough investigation as to whether criminal charges should be brought, but I cannot conceive under any set of circumstances a justification for a police officer doing a drive-by shooting of a child on an ATV, shooting him with a taser. That is ridiculous, and as a result, I've filed this lawsuit today and we're going to get justice. I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Cop who murdered innocent child riding an ATV had trigger-happy history but was never fired. When looking into the past of an officer charged with the murder of a child while riding an ATV, a massive failure of accountability is exposed. By Jack Burns, December 27, 2017. Former Michigan State Trooper Mark Bessiner was charged with murder last week in the tossing death of 15-year-old Damon Grimes. The officer's sordid work history now being revealed shows he left a trail of destructive, reckless, and cowardly behavior in his wake. Despite numerous lawsuits and attempts to discipline the officer, his on-duty unlawful actions were only stopped after they led to the death of an innocent unarmed child. As we reported this summer, Bessiner attempted to force Grimes to pull his ATV off of the road by shooting his taser at him. The thoughtless plan backfired when Grimes apparently seized and slammed into the back of a parked pickup truck, killing him instantly. The mid-August killing of the rising ninth grader stunned not only the community but Grimes' family, who immediately began calling for justice. They also filed a $50 million lawsuit against the Michigan State Police and demanded an inquiry into the death of their beloved family member. Advertisement. According to the Detroit Press, Bessiner was involved in several controversial deployments of his taser. They write, State Police wanted to suspend Bessiner for 10 days for firing his taser twice at a handcuffed man who was running away in 2016. But an arbitrator said there was no just cause for discipline. Unfortunately, as TFTP has reported, to the point of exhaustion, few officers are ever disciplined for unlawful and unethical actions committed while on duty. Not only do many if not most receive a paid suspension, often the suspension never leads to the officer's firing. In the rare occasion when an officer is fired, they simply become gypsy cops going from one department to another until they screw up again, or kill someone like Bessiner did. His work history is no different. In 2014, Bessiner also fired his taser at a suspect who was handcuffed during a traffic stop in Detroit. He agreed to a 5-day suspension, records show, but 4 days were eventually dropped. The slap on the wrist 1-day suspension was not enough behavior modification to keep Bessiner from using his taser to attack people. Just months later, Grimes was killed, and now the former officer is being held on a $1 million bond while he awaits his trial for murder. Not even the Michigan State Police are standing with him, either. Spokesman Lieutenant Mike Shaw said, "His behavior was criminal. We're not trying to pull the rug over anyone's eyes." Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy did not mince words. She said there was no reason for the officer to deploy his taser on the teenager, especially from a moving vehicle. But Bessiner, as previously noted, had been accused on multiple occasions of using excessive force. Most of those accusations resulted in lawsuits which were later dismissed. But one case of recklessness was never solved. Not only did he taser people with reckless abandon, even people who were already in handcuffs, he drove his police-issued cruiser in equally as reckless fashion. According to the Detroit Press, Bessiner's personnel file also shows he faced a misconduct allegation in March. State police said he was driving at high speed without emergency lights or sirens. The case apparently wasn't resolved before he quit last fall. That accusation, as TFTP has reported, is the #1 reason police officers get killed while on duty, death by vehicle, with the officers being the only occupant on most occasions. Unfortunately, not only was the officer not disciplined by his department, given a slap on the wrist when he was disciplined and had his court cases dismissed, but he kept his position as an officer of the peace long enough for him to become known in cop watcher circles as a killer cop. Read more. Alleged cop killer Eric Frayne has been captured. Now, the family of this innocent child will have to live the rest of their lives knowing this killer cop should have never had a badge in the first place, and their son's death could have been prevented if departments actually held their own officers accountable.
Shocking abuses.
Misuse of
Cops who shouldn't have been on the streets in the first place.
A Detroit Free Press investigation exposes how Michigan fails to get rid of problem cops.
Cops who have been fired, forced out, even convicted of crimes in one place. No one is keeping track.
Check out Disorderly Conduct, our exclusive investigation only in your Detroit Free Press and at freep.com.
A police pursuit is the most unique anomaly that law enforcement does. Let me give you an example. If law enforcement goes to arrest an individual, the people in danger is the law enforcement officer and the suspect. Law enforcement goes and does a search warrant. The people in danger is law enforcement, the people inside the residence. But when you talk about a police pursuit, you have a third party that isn't involved in anything else in law enforcement, and that's innocent civilians. So your law enforcement officer's in danger, your suspect, your chase is in danger, and now innocent civilians on the roadway, minding their own business, are in danger. And that's what we're seeing. We see more civilians killed in pursuits than law enforcement. And that's why we have to take this very, very seriously. And it's a very unique thing because unlike we can choose locations to do arrests, we can choose locations to do search warrants, we can choose a lot of the activities we do in law enforcement. When it comes to a police pursuit, you don't get to choose when and where that happens. You know, there are a myriad of different police pursuit policies. For years we saw the typical generic policy. It comes from case law where it basically says when the danger to the public outweighs the necessity to pursue, you need to terminate the pursuit. The problem with that kind of language is, while it's legal language, what does that mean? You know, a dangerous pursuit to a 21-year-old police officer probably means a lot different than a 20-year veteran police officer. I know it does for me. And so I think what we have to do is we have to follow the other policies in our profession, whether it be our use of force policies and the myriad of other policies, and when it comes to our pursuit policies, get very, very specific for our officers so they know when to chase and when not to chase. And we typically do that by using what we call restrictive policies, restrictive pursuit policies, where we only chase for certain crimes. We only chase under certain circumstances. And that will help our officers out because it helps them make the correct decisions. The technology when it comes to vehicle pursuit technology to mitigate pursuits is woefully inadequate. You know, the most prevalent technology, tire deflation devices, is essentially a string with nails on the end where we force officers to stand right out the roadway holding this string with deflation devices on the end as suspects drive by at 90, 100 miles an hour. We lose officers every year using that technology. A technology that kills us is not a technology that we need. When it comes to training American law enforcement officers, our agencies would never hesitate to say that we need to train in firearms once, twice, 4 times a year. And that firearms training needs to be scenario-based, realistic-based, so our officers can be prepared when that day comes. The fact is, most officers will never fire their guns in the line of duty, but we train them to a very high level for that very rare occurrence because it's that important. But let's take that and go to vehicle training. How many officers get vehicle training past the basic academy? Even though they're in their vehicle every day, we lose more officers in vehicles than anything else. For the last almost 2 decades, that's the leading cause of death for law enforcement. It's the leading cause of liability for our communities. It's the leading cause of career-ending injuries. What type of training are we providing our officers? The day has got to get here where we take vehicles just as serious as we do firearms. It's time we make vehicles just as important as firearms so our law enforcement officers in our communities can be as safe as possible.
County, this is Charlotte County Cop Watch, and I wanted to explain what fair use is. You can use pieces of news articles if you're doing it for news reporting, you have commentary, and you're doing it for education purposes. So that's what fair use is, as you can see right here. Another reason why I wanted to make this video is to let you know I have just joined with Patreon. A nice thing with Patreon, I make no money on YouTube. They took the money away years ago, and so this is another way to give, and it's a nice thing too because you can give monthly. You can give $1, $5, $10, whatever. I do 4 to 5 hours a day on trying to wake the sheeple up on how corrupt it is and different ways that you can fight the corruption. So Patreon is a way that you can do it, and then of course the old way is still there. Donate to Sheriff County Cop Watch with PayPal or credit card. So keep that in mind. 4 to 5 hours a day. I make no money, but the corruption happened to me and I'm sick of it, so I'm trying to wake people up. But my wife would love it if some, if we could get some help out there. There's 47,000 subscribers. Just think if each one of you subscribers just gave let's say, actually, yes, $1 a month. 47,000 subscribers gave $1 a month. That would be awesome. That's not going to happen. But anyways, that would be great if it did happen. But, do the math in your head. Just think about it. Like I said, 4 to 5 hours a day. I get no money from YouTube. YouTube has gone nuts. You can't do anything anymore. They're taking the money away everywhere. So these are a couple different ways that you can still help out with all this time that I put in. And as you know, I'm in a special situation where, at least I can do it. 4 to 5 hours a day. We have a cleaning company during the day. That's what allows me to do this, and we're debt free. So this is my hobby. I don't go fishing and all that other crap. I try to save the world. So help me out to make the wife happy, man. In fact, if you guys did give $1 a day, and there was 47,000 of you, and you did it, and each of you gave $1, and that was every month, oh my God, yes, I could quit. I could start suing them. Another idea too that we have is, if I got, some funds, we could actually contact everyone that has been ticketed and or arrested and put in jail and start sending them postcards to let them know we're here, and to see if everything went all right, and if it didn't, find out their story. So we could even do more investigations and more lawsuits. Lawsuits take money. So just think about that. 47,000 of you so far right now. $1 a day. $1 a month on Patreon, or $5 a month Patreon, 10, 20, whatever. Just do the math in your head. Help out. This is a lot of work every single day. Thanks.